to Mancinima. I hope you're all doing very well. This is our first one back. We've been in Pasadena. We've been attending the 45th anniversary of the Halloween movie, massive convention out there. And while we were out there, news broke that they were shopping around the Halloween franchise in order to get it back up and running again, after the end of Halloween ends, and get another movie out there as soon as possible. The other thing that happened while we were out there is that there was a number of names that were in contention. There was Paramount Pictures were after it, which I would have been keen to have actually, because they were doing very well with the Scream franchise. It would be lovely to have Michael Myers, Ghostface under the same roof, and of course, once upon a time, Jason Voorhees lived at Paramount. So it'd be nice to kind of have Paramount owning Michael Myers and having him in their house, if you know what I mean. So that would have been quite nice. The other name that was in contention was Miramax, and the other one, which I really didn't want to have it, was A24. I really don't think A24 would know what to do with Michael Myers, and given what they've put out, they do those kind of emotional, kind of navel-gazing, kind of elevated horror movies, and I really didn't see that would work for the Halloween franchise, and if they did decide to make a movie like that, it wouldn't be the Halloween that we'd know and love, so I was really kind of praying that A24 wouldn't get it. A couple of days after we got out of the convention, while we were actually in Los Angeles, the rumour struck around that actually A24 had got it, and my heart sunk a little bit. I think, what kind of movies are we going to see now? So, I'd go and watch them, but I just know that they're going to deliver something along the lines of, like, Talk to Me, which was, one of my worst movies of the year, and Hereditary and stuff like that. I really didn't want to see this really kind of weird kind of take on Halloween, so I was a little bit, what are we going to do with this now? Hopefully they'll get rid of it as soon as they got it. Anyway, turns out that wasn't quite true. Those were just rumours that were circulating online, and the people who had a previous stake in it, Miramax, who had basically been involved, I think, since 1995's The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween 6 Curse of Michael Myers. They now own the distribution rights and the rights to produce a television series and movies based on Halloween from here on out. So that's really good news. So hopefully they'll do something that brings us back in line with what we know from Halloween and what we know from Michael Myers. So that's some good news. So at least A24 haven't got their hands on the Halloween franchise. So I guess the question is now, what do they do with this television series and movie series now that Miramax own it? What is the way forward? Well, they could kind of pick up from the end of Halloween Ends, which I really hope they don't do. Because I think they kind of dug themselves a bit of a dirty grave with that one. The way they had Michael portrayed as a bit weak and as human, and there was just loads of story threads in that one that I didn't really care for, and I really hope that they're not going to pick up and go forward from there, because if you've seen the end of Halloween Ends, you know what they do to Michael and you know what they're suggesting. So I think what they really need to do is dump all of the baggage. First and foremost, dump all of the baggage that came with the previous movies. Let's get rid of Laurie Strode, let's get rid of Allison, let's get rid of all those background things that have bogged this series down for so long, which have given us some really duff sequels really, because they've been hanging on to the baggage. They hang on to the sister storyline for Halloween 2, and it kind of gave us 4 and 5, having to relate it to blood and stuff like that, which really bogged Michael down. So I say, let's dump all of that, let's get rid of all of the Laurie Strode, all of the backstory, and let's just start afresh. Now, there were rumours a few years ago that they were going to be doing an anthology series, which would follow on from the end of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which came out in 1981. Of course, I don't know if you know the original story, but John Carpenter only ever wanted to make Halloween, and that was it. He didn't want to make Halloween 2. The studio pressured him into making Halloween 2. And at the end of that movie, he said, right, I'm killing off Loomis, I'm killing off Michael. That's the end of that story. That is the end of Michael Myers' story. And when we come back, we're just going to have a different story set on Halloween night, every movie that we create from now on. So Halloween 3 was going to be one story, then he would have had another story set on Halloween night, and so on and so forth. And that's the way that it was going to go forward. Of course, there's a lot of fans that are now been introduced to Jason Voorhees, and he was in an ongoing series with Friday the 13th, and we wanted Michael back in a similar way in Halloween. So when Halloween 3 was announced, we thought, great, more Michael Myers, and then he didn't show up. So there was a lot of fan kick-off, a lot of people didn't go and see the movie, it didn't do very well, it didn't fare well critically, and Halloween for a little while was on the burner until 1988's The Return of Michael Myers, of course, where we brought the shape of Michael Myers back. So I think it's fair to say that we are going to get Michael Myers in this TV series. As much as I'd love to see the anthology TV series explored, we do already have Creepshow, which is a similar thing. The only difference will be that each story will be set on Halloween night, and I don't know how much kind of mileage you could get out of that. The other thing that worries me about TV series and Michael Myers is how much mileage can you get out of a slasher story? You know, my worry is that they're going to overexpose him, overexpose the characters until when the movie comes up, people aren't going to be that bothered about seeing him because they've seen him too much on the TV show. I mean, it's working for Chucky at the moment, but again, if you released a Chucky movie in the cinema right now, would it be as popular because he's on TV, he's into the third season of his TV show? So would that movie be as popular because he's been kind of overexposed in a way? We've seen too much of him. I don't know how that's going to work. So maybe the anthology idea would be good, and then just keep Michael for the movies. One thing I will say is, regardless TV show or movie, is that we want Michael Myers to remain looking the same. We want him to remain in that boiler suit, the same mask. We don't want them to change it up just for changing it up's sake, which I know some studios like to do. They like to just change the look of things for the sake of doing it. So please don't do that. Let's keep him the way that he's always looked. And if you can, kind of veer him back towards the Shatner mask and the Shatner look that we had in the first movie, because that was the creepiest look. I know he had a bit of a gurney look on his face in Halloween 4, so if we can kind of keep the mask relatively decent, that would be fantastic. So let's talk about locations. There's a guy that's got a channel called Wolfman's Got Nards, and I think his name's Barry. And during his talk about what he would like to see in Halloween, he said that he would like to see it kept in Haddonfield and kept in the area with all the different characters. I disagree. I think we shouldn't keep it in Haddonfield. I think what we need is, like I said, we need to dump the baggage. We need to get rid of all of that stuff that hangs on to Michael, Haddonfield and stuff like that. And it's getting a bit ridiculous that, you know, this character keeps coming back and back to the same town. What would be interesting is if you could find a similar small town with a different aesthetic, a different look, and then bring Michael in the same way that he was introduced in the first film, just kind of popping up here and there. You don't know what his game is, you don't know what his plan is. He just appears to people, then disappears, and then he appears again to other people, then disappears, and then he plays out his game at night time. This is the other thing that Barry said. He wanted Barry to be human as he was in the David Gordon Green trilogy, and I completely disagree with that. I don't think he should be a mortal man. I do agree that he should be an element of the supernatural. Now, my reasoning for that is that John Carpenter described him originally as a force of nature. So you've got that, and you've also got all those tales that Loomis tells in the original, you know, 2 and beyond, I guess, Halloween movies, where he's describing Michael as this evil on 2 legs. He's not a man and stuff like this. And I always thought that was great. I always thought that he was an element of Halloween. I always thought he was something that rode in on Halloween's back and did his nasty deeds and then kind of vanished off into the night as soon as Halloween vanished. And that could be very interesting for the TV show. You could have this lead up of him appearing to people, scaring people in the same creepy way, and then the carnage of Halloween night, and then maybe the TV show could deal with the aftermath, and then the preparation for the next Halloween. Is he going to come back, and how are we going to deal with this? And do we leave town and stuff like that? You know, some real interesting questions. So there's a lot of interesting ways they could go with that in Halloween, but I do think we need a complete refresh. You know, keep the look, keep the stylings of Michael from the original film. What I do want them to do is dump all the violence. I want them to have, in my mind, Michael was always this child that was trapped in a man's body, and that's very evident if you watch the first movie. But as soon as he kills Bob and he stabs him, he's the whole tilt of the head thing in my mind is Michael looking at what he's done and trying to understand death and trying to understand why this guy isn't moving anymore. It's almost like when a child, you know, kills an insect and then is curious why the insect doesn't move anymore. Same with the way that a cat, when a cat kills a mouse and is prodding it, trying to get it to run, and it won't run because they don't realise they've killed it. So I want kind of that kind of a feel to Michael Myers. It's almost an innocence, if you like. I want that kind of an innocence trapped in this evil body, and he's out doing these evil deeds, and he doesn't really understand death, and he's trying to understand death. I want that kind of a psychology for Michael, and I want to see some more of that. I also want to see him, do you remember when Annie's in the washroom and she's stuck in the window, she's trying to get out, and you can just see like the white blur of his face hidden behind some curtains. Things like that where he's there and you know he's there, but the victim doesn't know he's there. It really builds up the suspense, it really builds up the tension in a scene, and I would love to see a lot more of that than basically him jumping up, killing somebody in a nasty death, showing some blood and gore just for the sake of blood and gore and then moving on. That's not suspenseful at all. One of the things that I didn't like about David Gordon Green's 2018 movie is that scene where he just arrives in the town. I thought it was great, it looked very Halloween-y with the leaf fall and the colours and stuff like that. But the fact he just kind of walks up to that woman's house, looks in the window, walks up behind her, stabs her in the throat, comes out, walks off and does another one. No suspense in that scene whatsoever. No suspense. What would have been nice is if you'd have seen him go up to the house and then slow it down a little bit. Think, well, we know he's in the house, and you just have her wandering about her business for a little while. Just stretch it out a bit more, and then have him do the attack, because, you know, that will build the suspense. The fact that he just walked around the house, went in the back, stabbed him in the throat, walked out again, no suspense in that scene whatsoever. So let's think about that. Let's think about that old Hitchcock thing about the bomb under the table. You know the bomb's under the table, the victims don't know the bomb's under the table. What we're waiting for is for that to go off, and that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for Michael to go off. So let's play a bit more on the suspense aspect, and let's try to bring some of that into the Halloween movie. And again, that could be done supernaturally, because the scene where Laurie looks out the window and she sees him hiding behind the washing, and in the same instance he vanishes, and you're thinking, well, that is kind of supernatural. Is it her mind playing tricks on her, or is it him actually there and then being able to vanish and becoming an element of the night, and then when he comes into full force when night falls? You know, that's far more interesting to me than having this mortal man who sits down in a sewer after he gets too old and then sends out some young lad to do his killing for him. So yeah, let's try a little bit more of that. Let's try a little bit more suspense and stuff like that. So that's the kind of thing that I'd be looking for in a Halloween TV series. But the other thing I would kind of like to see, and I don't know how they would do it, but you kind of do need a Van Helsing type character. I always liked the old Dracula movies when you had Peter Cushing's Van Helsing, and Peter Cushing would give you all the information on Dracula. You know, he can't be seen in mirrors, he's afraid of sunlight and stuff like that. Loomis did that in the original Halloween movies, in the original Halloween and Halloween 2. He gave you the background. He gave you just enough to make you scared of Michael without revealing too many secrets about him, that it kind of made him not scary anymore. He gave you just the hint of what you needed to know, and I think you need a character like that again, and I think you need a character to hunt Michael down. Not saying we need an exact Loomis clone, I'm not saying we need Son of Loomis or stuff like that, but you need a similar type character. It didn't really work in the Halloween H2O with Jamie Lee just being his nemesis, and also in the recent movies with Jamie Lee as his nemesis. You miss Loomis, you really miss that characterisation, that real kind of deep feeding of information that you get, that you need to know, that gives you the fear, because Loomis is afraid as well, and he's passing that fear on to you. So that's the kind of thing that you need. But anyway, that's a few of my thoughts on the Halloween TV series stroke movies that are coming up. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are, what you'd like to see. Obviously, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really does help the channel out. Do not be a thumb bandit. No, those weirdos are clicking it that way up for no reason whatsoever. That's all free. Subscribing to the channel is free. There's loads of different videos coming up. There's loads of videos already on the channel. So please go and have a look at those, and then have a review of those. And like I say, come and have a chat with me down in the comments, and hit the notification bell for brand new videos that are coming up. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I'll see you all very soon.